Let's try to reset this. Like, where is the feedback coming from? It's coming from somewhere. Anyway, welcome. In case any of you forgot that I am not a tech savvy boomer, this is a good reminder. Welcome, one and all. We are going to be using Paint today. It is good to see you. Hopefully you had a good weekend. Hopefully you got a chance to play Heist. Hopefully you got a chance to play a lot of Path of Exile. And hopefully your league and your weekend went as good or even better than mine. So our opening monologue today is going to really hammer home and really hit on our question of the day. So I'm going to bring up our question of the day in chat using this Twitch chat command. I love that we have those, by the way. Thanks so much to everybody who's been helping me learn Twitch. You guys are all amazing. So our question of the day is this. This is the way how we phrased it. Would you rather have a river or a lake as a league patch in Path of Exile? You might be wondering, Iron, what do you mean by a river or a lake? Would you rather have continually changing updates and hotfixes to balance and mechanics? That's a river, right? A river flows. And so do you want a league update to be like a river where there's a continual changing flow? And you can see, of course, we've even got the meme here because we're beside the river in our hideout, right? There's the waterfall and the river runs along, and you can see this is what Heist League has been like. It has been a river league. The water comes down the waterfall and then boom, it fills on out. And you can see each and every day there's basically been a new hotfix or a new patch or a communication of an upcoming change, of an upcoming hotfix, of an upcoming patch that will be coming down the line. Pretty much every day since Heist came out, there's been some level of communication from GGG. Now, on the one hand, like I said this morning on YouTube, hopefully a lot of you have probably already seen that video. This is great. I love that Grinding Gear Games communicates with us. And so in terms of a river of communication is great. Tell us as the player base what's going on with the game. We need to know. But the lake, there is this lake aspect, right? A lake league is different from a river league. A lake league is when a patch remains whole with some changes. There are some changes that happen, right? Lakes aren't completely stagnant, right? A wind blows on a lake, right? So there's some movement to a lake, right? There's some amount of change, or the river flowing into a lake, depending on how far you want to take this terrible analogy. But a lake is, for the most part, in comparison with a river, it's not a body of moving water. For the most part, it's there, it's present, and it is, as constituted, going to be what it's going to be. So, would you rather have a river sort of patch style and patch approach, where there's constantly things that are coming out throughout a league, or would you rather have a lake with minimal bug fixes, but the major changes and the major updates and the major features are all implemented at a single time, at the creation of the lake, as it were, or at the creation of the patch? This is what I was thinking about today, and this is why I decided to bust out the paint. And so, yeah, today we paint. I feel like there's a couple of different leagues that we've experienced, right? And I'll give you some examples here. So, one example of a league that I think has been a river league that a lot of you might be able to relate to. Well, some of you might be able to relate to. I'm not sure how many of y'all started Path of Exile, or when you started playing Path of Exile in your journey. But Delirium. Delirium was much, much more of a river style of patch, right? There's a river that's going along, and we got the river and the water, and it's twisting and it's curving, and and as we're able to, we patch things. As we're able to, right? There's the river. Oh gosh. This is why Bob Ross is Bob Ross and why I'm G3 Iron. So, Delirium was definitely a river, right? In terms of how things changed, how things updated. Delirium was the first time, at least in my recent memory, that I can really say, okay, Grinding Gear Games is now communicating that they want to actively change things during a league. But that's something that GGG hasn't always wanted to do. Changing things in a league has not always been a part of their design philosophy. In fact, most of the time, GGG says, look, we're not going to change things during a league. Vast majority of the time, a league is a league and we're not going to touch it. You enjoy it, you play test it, you mess around with it for 3 months, and we're going to leave it. We'll make some changes, we'll make some bug fixes, we'll come in and we'll adjust things if we really feel like it's breaking something. But for the most part, here's the patch on patch day, bada boom, right? So, some of you are going to wonder and are going to say, okay, Iron, well, what's an example of a lake? What's an example of a lake league? So, a good lake league, if we've got Delirium being a river, then we've got kind of like a shapy kind of lakey right here. With blue on the inside, right? Blue on the inside and then green around the outside. Man, I need a bigger brush for this. Where's like the thickest brush possible? Go around the outside, just like Two Trailer Park Girls. You guys are all too young to get that reference, but it's okay. And there's greenery around the outside of this lake, right? Oh, what happened to my brush? Why did I must have stopped applying pressure to my mouse. There we go. All right, so we got a lake league. One example of a lake league, I would argue, was Metamorph. Metamorph was a lake league in that the vast majority of the changes that came in on league launch. That's where the vast majority of changes came into. Feel free to disagree with me in chat. Feel free to push back. Feel free to, again, answer our question of the day. I'm going to get to some of your comments here in a moment when I stop ranting with our opening monologue, which, by the way, I'm not drinking tea today. I'm drinking hot water. Today's opening monologue is brought to you by my cup of hot water. Ah, that's a good cup of hot water. Tell you what, nobody makes a mean cup of hot water like Mrs. Draconis. So Metamorph, most of the changes that came into the game were on patch day. And then there were some changes that came along with Metamorph, right? We didn't have to necessarily... There were issues sorted out with organs dropping and with organs being vacuumed up, right? There were some issues with some balance tweaks here and there. Like sometimes the Metamorphs were potentially over-rewarding, and sometimes they were bugged, right? People had figured out a way to abuse Tane's laboratory, and that deserved some changes. Hey, K-Trim, thanks so much for the host. Welcome, welcome. So there's something to that, right? There's something to both a lake mentality and a river mentality. We've had examples of it both in the recent years. And Metamorph, along with Metamorph, of course, releasing, also came the Conquerors of the Atlas expansion, which was a massive, massive change for the way how things operate on the Atlas. So maybe maybe a part of the lake effect of Metamorph was that there was so much going on and there were so many changes, but it didn't feel like 3 weeks into Metamorph we were getting mechanical changes to Metamorph that changed the essence of the league, or that changed the soul of the league, or the pitch of the league, right? I'll give you another example of this. Okay, another example of this, in my opinion, and I'll just copy pasta here. We got another lake league. Love to hear what you guys think on this. I think that Harvest was, for the most part, a lake league. It was, for the most part, a lake league. It was, for the most part, hey, we're going to release this thing. Here's the new mechanic. Here's the information about it on, during patch day, or during patch notes day. And then all this information is going to come out. You're going to play the league. We're going to make some small tweaks along the way. But those tweaks are mostly going to be about bug fixes. And that'll be that. That'll be that. That's going to be the league. We're not going to all of a sudden say, you know what, now that we've released the garden and we've released all these things that you need to connect up together, we're no longer going to say, you know what, you just don't need to connect anything to any towers anymore. You don't need to connect your gardens to towers for storage purposes, right? That would essentially drain the entire, it would drain the lake, it would drain the swamp, whatever meme you want to use. But it would suck the soul out of the vision for the league, right? It would fundamentally change a primary mechanic of the league. All right, I'm going to go into the Wayback Machine here, and I'm going to give you a river league that I've been thinking about actually for a while. And I don't think this is something that it should be too controversial, but I think Synthesis was actually a river league. I think Synthesis was actually a river league because of so many things that were changing. So oftentimes the mechanics of Synthesis would break, or people would find exploits. And so Synthesis, there wasn't something about Synthesis that primarily changed the soul of the league, like we would typically think between a river versus a lake league. But I will say there were so many changes that had to be pushed through for Synthesis that it was like every couple of days or so, there was a hotfix, there was a patch, there was a bug, there was a this, there was a that. There was a change with the way how the memory system was working. There was a change with the way how the rewards were working from the memory system. There was a way how the synthesizer was pumping things out. There was a way how the synthesizer was displaying information. There was a change in the way how Cavis was using his NPC line. Sometimes they were working, sometimes they weren't. Right, so there's always going to be bugs. But with the amount of changes that got made to balance and to the mechanics of synthesis, Delirium and Synthesis, I would put both into the same basket of being river leagues, right? Where there's continual changes that are ongoing to the league, to the core league mechanic throughout the life cycle of the league. Now, we are less than what? We're just over 2 weeks into the league, right? Not quite 2 weeks, right? Today's the 29th, right? On my clock, it's 1:21 p.m. on the 29th. So we're not quite 2 weeks in. But Heist League right now feels like it's on a path to do one of these. This is what I feel like with Heist League. With that exact sound as well. That's the soundtrack that'll be playing in all of our hideouts when Heist goes core. Oh, there is just a continual and ever-changing flow of hotfixes, patches, and mechanics balance changes for Heist. Like, I feel like this is, if not the archetypal River League, this is certainly at least the worst offender so far of what I've experienced. Every single day that I sign on to Discord, there is a new update from GGG. Now, on the one hand, again, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not complaining about that. I applaud Grinding Gear Games for communicating with us as players. Let us know what's coming down the pipeline. We need to know what's coming down the pipeline. That being said, when every single day the shape of a league potentially changes, then as a player, it gets really, really tough to invest in it. Because you're not sure, okay, is this bend in the river? Is this what the league is going to be like? Is the league going to be like everything that's left of this? Or, well, on your screen, right? Or is it left on your screen? I don't know. Oh, that's weird. What if I was watching me on a phone? I don't know. I could pull me up on a phone. But I don't know. Whichever direction that is. Whichever direction this is of this line. Is this area over here, is that what the league is actually going to look like? And so you play the league for a little bit, and then guess what? There's another update, there's another patch, there's another change, and you go, okay, maybe this is what the league is going to look like now. And then another day comes out and they go, okay, we actually got to tweak this, we got to change this, we discovered a new bug. Okay, is this what the league is going to look like now? If this is what the league is going to look like now, I'm going to engage with the mechanic. I'm going to build my build around it. I'm going to try to engage with the mechanic as much as possible. Because if you really love a mechanic that comes out during a temporary league in Path of Exile, you should interact with it as much as you can. Because typically when things go core in Path of Exile, it becomes tougher to interact with it. So if you really love a league mechanic, and I learned this lesson the hard way with Synthesis, if you love a league mechanic, just spend as much time as you can in it, because you don't know A, if it's going core, and B, if it does go core, you have no idea what it's going to look like. I'm sure a lot of you who enjoyed Harvest League are feeling that right now, going, hey, I miss Harvest, and I wish I would have done more Harvest, because knowing now that it's not in the core for right now, I'm missing it. So then you go, okay, I've got a build ready, and we've had about 3 changes so far. Really ready to go. It looks like everything's good. It looks like things are stable. It looks like the bugs are getting fixed. Like the direction of the league that's going. And then the next day you sign on and you go, oh, there's more changes. So is this new line? Is this now the sand? The line in the sand that's being drawn? Is this... Oh, there's a new update. Okay, is this where the line in the sand is being drawn? Oh, there's a balance change update to how chests are going to drop. Okay, is this... And do you see what I'm saying here? Maybe this is just personal. Maybe this is just personal, right? Maybe this is just for me, right? Maybe this is something where everybody needs to say, yo, Iron, get over it. You're being an old man. That's totally fair, if that's the reality of it, okay? Let me know if I'm just being an old man and I need to get over it. But I feel like there is genuinely a difference and a distinction between a River League and a constantly updating Path of Exile game and a Lake League, where for the most part, again, it doesn't mean everything, but for the most part, the league is dumped on you as such, and then you can adjust, adapt, etc. But you don't have to be paying attention on a daily basis for patch notes. I've never felt more compelled to be paying attention and looking for updates and patches and announcements in Path of Exile than now. And it's got nothing to do with, oh, I'm bored of Path of Exile and I don't have anything else to talk about, so I need to go read announcements. It's, I feel like the announcements that are getting made about Heist League are integral to the way how I'm going to play Path of Exile and enjoy it. And so I want to let everybody in the community know, hey, here are changes that are coming. Whether they're positive or negative changes. Which I think changes, for the most part, have attempted to be positive, right? That's always the goal. The goal is always to make something better. It's not to make something worse. So, that was our opening monologue. Thanks so much for joining us for our opening monologue today, as we've messed around in Paint, discussing the differences between Lake Leagues and River Leagues. Let's go back and say hello to some of you. Hello, Rangara. It's nice to have you here. Hello, Sunny. Nice to see you. Zeko, welcome, welcome. BVB Darkness, nice to see you today. Jest, we are using a new hideout today. I got a comment from some people saying, as they were coming to my hideout to pick up their G3 banking investments, he said, hey, Iron, it took me like X amount of time to load into your old hideout. So I went from my glorious tower brutal hideout with all kinds of way too many decorations, and I just went with this hideout. Because I was like, isn't this the hideout that I see the most people AFKing in just to trade? So maybe it's the easiest hideout to load into. So all these guys are just in the spot that they come in when you naturally select this hideout. I did move the waypoint slightly because the waypoint originates right here. And so I moved the waypoint. That's the only thing I've done for the hideout. But yeah, we are using a new hideout here today. Hopefully that'll make trading go faster in the future. Good morning, Nagria. Welcome, welcome, Sam. Welcome, Toto. Who else have I missed? I've missed a whole bunch of you. Welcome, Tehead. Welcome, Crazy Musketeer. K-Trim, again, thanks so much for the stream host. Welcome, Fossy Bear. Welcome, Cello. Am I saying that wrong? Am I saying that wrong? Maybe I'm saying that wrong. Cello says, I'm shocked that anyone would drink hot water. Yeah, it gets cold here. My hands get cold, and I like to drink hot water, as strange as that might sound. I also like to drink tea. Usually I'm drinking tea or something to help with my throat, since I do so much talking for my work. And then I also do a bunch of talking now for my hobby because I'm loving streaming on Twitch. So I need something that'll soothe my water as much as I can. And Zeko says, same here, but is the water from a lake or a river? That's a great question. Oh, man. Welcome, Captain Lonesong. Welcome, Drake Mage. It's great to have all you guys. All right, so I'm going to go back through. Oh, welcome, Baroque. Baroque999. Welcome, welcome. Crypto Knight. Welcome. So glad to see you guys. A couple of different Twitch pointers for you. Those of you here who are subs, we got our second sub emote approved by Twitch over the weekend. So you now should be able to spam not only yours truly, Balding Forehead, if you're a sub to the channel, but you also can spam Mirrors of Calandra. So that's an exciting new emote that we've got available to us. And K-Trim is already showing that off for us today. So thanks so much for showing that off, K-Trim. So where we are standing presently in our chat, let's go here. Let's go take a look at some of your answers. Heist is not a river, it's a waterfall, says Zeko. Yeah, that's a... Heist isn't... Yeah, Heist isn't this. What my silly character, Hideout Draconis, I'm level 2. I'm just here to do trades. That's all this character is here for. I don't want to have like my / played time go up on other characters just for sitting AFK in my hideout, chatting and then waiting for trades to come in. So I make a character like this almost every league. Yeah, it's not like this part of the river. Heist is like this part of the river right now. Which, to be fair, it's the first couple of weeks of a league, and we ought to expect that. For the first 2 weeks of any league, there's generally a lot of bug fixes, but there's not necessarily mechanical changes, at least in my memory, to the tune and to the amount that we've experienced with Heist. Okay, but that's a great point, Zeko. Toto says, if the league is good initially, I'd like it to remain that way. However, since there is no way Grinding Gear Games could possibly know what the community at large prefers, the river plan is probably a better idea. Also, I got screwed out of a chance at winning the Oshabi race due to an extremely bugged fight. Oh, that feels bad. I am sorry about that, Toto. My condolences. That feels bad. Yeah, the river plan... Here's the advantage, right? As you've pointed out, Toto. The advantage of the river plan is it allows for a lot more flexibility and improvements to be made along the way, right? Oftentimes players during a league like Harvest or Metamorph would say, oh, why is it that these changes aren't going on? Why is it that they don't keep working on this league to improve it? And so oftentimes in conversation, the response will be, whether that's on Reddit, on the forums, on Discord, on Twitch, on YouTube, the response will be, well, the reason why Grinding Gear Games stops working on a league at a certain point, they're always fixing bugs, pretty much 3 months into a league, like even until the league goes, you know, and transitions to standard, all of our characters move over to standard. Even until transfer day, there's still bug fixes that are going on. So props to Grinding Gear Games for doing that, for dedicating personnel and time and resources to constantly be fixing bugs. I think that's great. The difference, though, is whether or not major features, like according to the latest update and the latest announcement overnight here in the US at least, we're going to get new bosses that are added into Heist. Like, we're going to be 2 weeks into the league and boss fights will then first be available. It's no longer a community discovering that there's a boss fight a part of this. It's, hey, we're being told, hey, there's more of this content that's coming in a couple of weeks. I'm not sure if this is a strategy to try to elongate player retention, or if it genuinely is, hey, we didn't have time to get that ready for patch day. And so we'd rather not push all of patch day back just for this little bit of content. I don't know. But you got to at least admit that the possibility is there that GGG is saying, hey, I wonder if we hold back a little bit of content if we can keep a few more players longer for retention. And it doesn't necessarily hurt our retention or hurt our patch day numbers if we say, you know, the bosses, the end game bosses of Heist aren't going to be there. And players don't have characters that are ready to take on the end game boss, you know, oftentimes yet. Maybe that's a part of the thinking as well. So Jess says, I understand why it probably happened, but I don't like that some endgame league content was planned to be only added a month into the league. Yeah, I don't like it either. To me, it takes off even some of the racing aspect to it. Again, I think of the things that I love about Path of Exile. I love watching clips and YouTube videos and reading about different people taking on new content and approaching things in a new way. And I feel like everything is available to you. The world is your oyster with a Lake League, and all of the content is available to you right away. Whereas once you say, hey, we're going to delay and we're going to start staging when pieces of the league are released, I think you can start to fragment your community. I think you might have and we already do have this in Path of Exile. There's some members of our community in Path of Exile who say, you know what, I'm not going to league start on league launch day. I will be there in a month when the league is actually settled down and they've fixed the bugs. Anecdotal. You can say it's anecdotal. Iron, that's not stats. Where's your stats to back that up? I'm just saying that I know people who do that. I'm not saying that's a big portion of the player base. I'm simply saying I know some people who do that. So if we all know a couple of people who do that, that might actually represent a percentage of the player population. Tahed says, I'd prefer a liver or a rake. Curse you, English language. That's fair. Crazy Musketeer says, oh, this is going to be good. The stream is starting with paint. Yeah, we always got to start with paint, right? When we're going to have this in-depth of a discussion. Got to start with paint. Fossey says, how often have you had to redo school years due to failing art class? Oh, every year. Every year, Fossey. Well, every year was a redo for me. Sam says, you're right in your analogy, but Metamorph was a relatively shallow league, with not much in terms of how you approach the content. You either kill the boss or you don't. Heist is much more ambitious, IMO. That's a great point, Sam. That's a great point, right? That's a great point. The level of ambition of a league is a factor, and I think, Sam, that's one of the reasons why we ought to say with Metamorph, at least a part of the factor with Metamorph was that Metamorph was not only a league launch, but also an expansion launch for Atlas of Conquerors, or Conquerors of the Atlas. I keep thinking of Atlas of Worlds. So, you know, it was a relatively straightforward league, but it also came with an expansion. Which, by the way, folks, it's September 29th. It's about to be October. Get ready for a new expansion, right? Coming soon. It's not that far away. We'll see, though. We'll see if GGG just wants to focus on smaller leagues or if they surprise us with a big change and a big expansion. K-Trim says, I think that Heist will start out as a river but end up in a pond. Yeah, if players don't like it, right? And I'm genuinely trying not to be negative Iron guy here, just screaming and ranting and upset. Just because Heist has been this experience for me down here, just because this has been my experience of Heist, doesn't mean it's anybody else's. I don't think I'm speaking for a significant portion of the player base when I share my opinions or experiences. I don't think I'm speaking for a whole bunch of other people. I think I'm speaking for me. So just because this is how I've perceived Heist doesn't mean anybody else is perceiving it out that way. But I will say, again, I'm not trying to be dramatic here. I'm not trying to draw attention or bait clicks, as you youth would say. Are you just baiting for clicks? That's a new one that I heard over the weekend. Oh, just baiting for clicks. This is not me baiting for clicks. I genuinely, and you guys have seen it all last week while we played on stream, you guys tell me, was I more excited during opening weekend as I was experiencing Heist, or was I more excited last week as we tried to get back into Heist? Like, which was, in your observations, me as an individual player, as you watched my level of excitement, was I more excited over opening weekend as I was trying out Heist and getting to know it and getting to learn it? Which, by the way, it was more stable for me on opening weekend than it's ever been since opening weekend. Monday, that first fix came through, and then for whatever reason, Heist was like, okay, now every other Heist is a crash for you. So I think as I've tried to interact with the mechanic, I've tried to stay positive because I had such a great experience on the opening weekend, and I'm like, hey, there's a really, really fun mechanic here to play with, and I want to enjoy it. So I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm not trying to be, hyperbolic. But I think if there are other players out there who share similar experiences to me, then Heist could be in trouble. Because I love Path of Exile, and I'll play Path of Exile even if it's a new league, and I'm not interacting with the new league. I'll still play because it's a fresh economy and it's fun. Because I love Path of Exile. Now, that might be a bad thing. Some of you might go, oh, Iron, you'll play Path of Exile even with a bad league or a league that you consider bad. Yeah, I still will, because I love Path of Exile. One league does not a whole game make, right? So for me, I'll still play it. But Crazy Musketeer says, is that the sound of a league dying? Maybe. Maybe. Drake says, forget the mechanic. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what I did part of last week, right? Was just map with my Toxic Rain Trickster. Just be like, hey, I'm just gonna run maps. And I saw a whole bunch of different content creators over the weekend saying, hey, just run maps. Like, maps are better than Heist. Just run maps. Now, you might say, okay, they're all trying to push people away from Heist because they want to keep all the rewards. But that's a pretty big tinfoil hat theory. Like, go get your tinfoil hat and you are officially a conspiracy theorist if you think a bunch of different content creators on Twitch and on YouTube and on multiple different platforms are saying, oh yeah, we're all going to band together to say Heist is bad so that way we can reap the rewards alone. That's a pretty big conspiracy. I think players have individually come to that conclusion. Oh, when I run maps, there's more monsters for me to kill, there's bosses for me to kill, there's progress that I get on my atlas, and I feel like my character is going somewhere because I actually get experience. When I play Heist, I hope that I get something good to drop out of a small chest. I hope I get something good to drop out of a big chest. And there are times where I do and I crash. There are times where I do and I die. And there are times that it'll actually work and I get out with some of the things that I've clicked on some of the chests that I've now interacted with. That's part of it. Tehead says the Heist patches, especially the first ones, feel like someone panicked. They basically removed a core part of the league mechanic, the alert level for mobs on day 2. That's not something that GGG wanted to do, but they thought they had to do for some reason. I agree with you. I don't know why. Some players have told me, oh, Iron, it was stupid to run around and kite stuff and do this or that. And I'm going, that's what I expected coming into Heist League. It's a heist. Now, I think there have been lots of improvements and lots of suggestions for how that alert level could have been improved upon. It didn't necessarily have to be killed. And it didn't necessarily have to remain the same. I think there are lots of ways that the alert level, the alert threat level, could have been interacted with. And I think a lot of you in chat over the last week have come up with great ideas and great suggestions for it. But I think you're right. Changing a core part of a league mechanic on day 2 of a league, to me, that screams panic. I don't know why. Maybe they figured out that the alert level was a part of the crashes. I don't know. Maybe. Jess says, yeah, there was something odd with completely removing that alert level from mobs. Yeah, I agree. That's like a core part of the gameplay loop for Heist. Toto says, to add to my original question of the day answer, a river is only a good idea if the upcoming changes are communicated beforehand. I agree. That was one of the reasons why I was so angry patch night during Harvest, because they gave us the changes. They said, hey, here's changes, and they didn't allow us to compare what the changes were. So it's like, hey, here's a bunch of information, but you guys go sort it out for yourself. It's just like it's like being handed a book and a stack of papers rather than being like a nicely bound book with a beginning and an end. It's like, here, you guys go sort it out. But to Grinding Gear's credit, that was Harvest, that was during COVID. I have no idea what that week was like to try to produce patch notes during a geographically dispersed team that you're not used to working in that environment. And oh, by the way, the entire world is gravely concerned because of a global pandemic going on. So I have no idea what that's like. So I don't want to speak too harshly on that one. But Harvest was an example of just what you described, of not communicating the river's changes as it came. K-Trim says, from one man to another, let's just have fun with what's presented to us. Things will settle down in another week or so. I hope so. K-Trim. And here's my worry. All right, my worry is that this is now the pattern. This and Delirium are the pattern of how things are going to go. That's my worry. Delirium, again, a lot of you might just say, oh, Iron, you're just a salty old gamer, and that's fine. Delirium, there was a point in time that to me there was a threshold that was crossed with Delirium, where Grinding Gear games typically would allow broken builds to remain broken and very, very strong. And a lot of you are going to say, Iron, they didn't kill the aura stacking builds. What are you talking about? They didn't nerf those during Delirium. No, but they said, hey, the weekend before they made changes to it, that they did a bug fix on that aura build. The weekend before they did, the Friday before, we had an official communication from Grinding Gear Games that said, hey, enjoy the build for the league. When people were asking, is this a safe build to play? A whole bunch of players, the entire economy shifted based off of a communication from a Grinding Gear Games employee that, hey, enjoy that build for the league. Whole bunch of players went out and started leveling those characters to play that build, and then, boom, Monday hit, new communication, hey, we're actually going to patch that and change that. Now, even though it didn't kill the build, you could still do it, and you could still do crazy, silly things like Cirrus storm diving, which a lot of players showed off and enjoyed and had fun with. I'm not saying that they nerfed the build in such a way to kill the build mid-league, but I'm saying they opened up this can of worms that we're experiencing where they said, hey, you know what? We're going to start taking a look at balance stuff and really taking a look at stuff during the league. Rather than saying patch notes is when things change, we're going to open up this can of worms and say, you know what? We're going to make changes to players' builds depending on what we see is actually happening in the league. And that, to me, it's not that that's unacceptable. That, to me, is that it's a change in mindset. It's a change in mindset from where Grinding Gear Games has been. And so, again, it's not that it's unacceptable. It's, okay, if this is the new reality, I now need to play this game in light of that new reality, the way how the developers are handling changes during a league. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Drake Mage says, did 3 contracts opening weekend crash too and got a bug door. Never stepped back into them until recent hotfixes crashed again. So effectively I'm playing standard with some coin drop that stockpiles. Yep, that sucks. That sucks. That's a bummer. Hey, welcome, Avesti. Nice to see you. To be fair, they didn't release Cirrus until week 3. At least how he is now. Remember the first iteration of Cirrus? Avesti, I do. And you can actually go back and you will hear a grumpy G3 Iron saying similar things. Saying, look, wait a minute. Cirrus was this way. Let's keep him this way. And a whole bunch of players who learned to fight Cirrus with storm clouds rotating, that was a part of that fight, was managing storm clouds. Wow, I just went AFK. Wow. We've now been chatting long enough that I've gone AFK. Okay, eventually I'm going to actually play the game here today. But Avesti, you're right. They made a major change to Cirrus. You're absolutely right. That's a good memory. And I was in the camp of leave it. Change it at the patch. Change it at the patch. If you're going to make a change it at the patch. That's when everything goes to standard. But if people have gotten used to beating this guy, like Cirrus, I think was much more harder to do with the storm clouds. And I saw a lot of different players who just went from I can't do Cirrus to oh, this is how I do Cirrus as soon as they made that change. Now, on the one hand, you might say, Iron, that's a good thing because now more players can access it and that's great. Okay, that's fine. But on the other hand, isn't a part of playing a game having that there's a challenge there that you can't do, that you need to strive for? I know, at least for me, one of those challenges was taking down Shaper for the first time. That was a multi-league process where I was like, man, I suck at this Shaper fight, and I can't get him. The first league, he took all my portals. The second league, he used up 4 of my portals, and I was just tilted, and I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this guy again. It's not worth it. And then the third league, Bestiary, I was like, all right, I can take this guy. I can do this. And I finally got him down. I only used up, I think, 2 portals in order to kill him. The first time that I killed him, it was great. It was a really great accomplishment for me, and it was something that we looked at over a long period of time and saw improvement in my own play about learning that fight. So I'm always of the opinion, look, it's Grinding Gear Games' game. They can change it, but please don't change it during the league. Change it when you've made a decision about whether or not it's going core or not, etc. That's when you make major mechanical changes, and that's something that I've appreciated about Grinding Gear Games in the past, and it's something I'm adjusting to and getting used to now. Captain Lone Song says, it's Heist. It should be a bit longer. It should not be a load of rares. It should be planning, more rewarding, and less micro. Yeah, that's well said. Crazy Musketeer says, many players could have been doing Heist bosses on day 2 or 3 as well. Yeah, exactly, right? So by taking those bosses out, the only people you're slowing down are the players who would have been doing it. And that's why I feel like, again, maybe I'm the one with the tinfoil hat today. I feel like, to a certain extent, you might say that this was a longevity plan, that this was a plan to try to make it so that way there'd be player retention. Like, hey, let's slow roll out some content to hopefully keep players playing longer. I don't know. So I'm saying that's a possibility. I'm not saying I think that's what's happening. I'm saying it's a possibility.